Are adverbs hurting your writing? I'm going to show you when to use them and, more importantly, when not to use them. This will improve your writing immensely starting today. Let's go to the first example. She stirred nervously. Yes, it's a little telly. Can you get away with it? Possibly. It really depends on your writing and what comes before and after this sentence. You're essentially naming the feeling. So let's try something different. Her hands twisted the hem of her shirt, fingers trembling as she avoided his gaze. So why this is more immersive, reader's going to have to infer the feeling that the person has. All that tells the reader this person is nervous without having to summarize it. Let's do the next one. She reacted fearfully. Again, a summary of her feelings and emotion, but can we show that in a different way? So how about this? A knot tightened in her stomach, and her breath caught as the heavy door creaked open. What I like about this sentence is that it immerses the reader in the story. They can probably imagine being there, having that twisted feeling in their stomach. When I say she reacted fearfully, does that evoke the same feeling or emotion as the second sentence? And I don't think it does. So again, you can choose to use the more telly, she reacted fearfully, but is that the best option for you in the moment in your story? And more often than not, it's going to be no. Here's another one. She said sharply and threateningly, "You got problems." Now, this writing, it feels kind of flat a little bit. Almost a little awkward in a way. So why don't we try to add a little personality to the person talking to kind of punch it up? Her eyes narrowed to slits, and her voice dropped into a cigarette-scarred growl. "Honey, you got problems." Automatically, I can picture who this woman is with the gravelly voice making a threat. And the "honey, you got problems" kind of makes sense. It fits a type of character that would do that. And I think it's just stronger writing. Here's the next example. He left reluctantly. That's pretty basic. It tells you what happens, but can you do more? Now, what if this is a very pivotal moment of the story and you ended it there? I don't think it would be that strong. As a reader, I would probably skip over that sentence pretty quick and move on. I wouldn't sit there and pause to absorb it. That's where we can kind of flesh out your writing, extend the sentence, allow for a longer pace to give the reader a moment to breathe and to absorb what you're writing. So let's try this. He lingered by the door, hand frozen on the knob for a moment too long, then left. Trying to do is really expand on reluctant. And when we describe emotions of how they paused a little too long and left, I could see a reader stopping and absorbing that and imagining how that would feel. And you don't get that through he left reluctantly, but you do get that if you kind of build out your writing and show, don't tell. So now let's go to some examples where it can work, but in actual fact, you're not using the right adverb, and you might need to use a different one. "Step back," he shouted fearfully as a dog growled menacingly, stating the emotion again. We're kind of doubling up some meaning here, so let's fix that. He stepped back, instinctively flinching as the dog growled. With the dog growling and the instinctive flinching of the character, I think that heightens the tension, and I think it heightens the threat of the dog. We don't have to go overboard and explain how the dog was menacing. We can do that by the character's reaction. By instinctively flinching, which is an adverb, kind of elevates by contrast the character's shock to the dog's growl, that this was something very serious. So adverbs, good to have, good to use, but you need to know when to use them and, more importantly, when not to use them. And if you're a starting writer, try to avoid them as much as possible, because I can guarantee you your writing is going to improve immediately. Now, there's much more to talk about on these topics and more. So if you happen to like these videos, click like and subscribe. Happy writing.